You're good.
All right.
Sure.
All right. Everybody ready to get back at it?
Ready to go.
Okay. Before I get into this presentation, how many here were not here yesterday? Oh, quite a few. Okay. Well, for those of you that were here yesterday, what was something that you learned that was different between Hebrew and our way of thinking? Everything. One of the things that I stressed yesterday in my presentations that I was trying to convey, hopefully I succeeded, is that when you're reading the Bible and you interject into it your own personal perspectives or the philosophy of our Greco-Roman culture, you're going to misinterpret the Bible. And what you have to do is interpret it from an ancient Hebrew perspective, which means that you're going to have to train your mind to start thinking like an ancient Hebrew. It's not an easy thing to do, but it is possible to a degree. Will we at some point know 100% how the ancient Hebrews' mind worked? No. No. But we can come close. So when you're reading the Bible, do you have to learn Hebrew in order to be able to understand it correctly? No. It's helpful. Don't get me wrong, it's helpful. But you have to at least interpret the words according to the Hebrew language, not the English language. Okay, so one of the examples that we gave yesterday of differences between Hebrew and Greek thinking is what? Besides everything. What were some of the things that we talked about that were different between Hebrew and Greek minds? Yeah?
Greek mind being very linear, Hebrew mind being in a circle. So
okay.
Always coming back.
Right. One of the things that we talked about was the journey. In the Greek mind it's a line, beginning to the end, but in Hebrew it's a circle. Everything's a circle in Hebrew. There is no beginning and end. It's just a continual cycles. What else? Anybody else? Yeah?
You have to be able to see it with your mind.
You have to what?
Be able to see it with your mind.
Be able to see it with your mind. Painting words with pictures. Difference between abstract and concrete. One of the examples I gave is from the book of Psalms. It talks about in Psalms 1, a tree planted by the waters. That's very concrete. We can see that imagery in our head. But can we see a picture of God is merciful? Can we actually, if I gave you a piece of paper and a pencil, could you draw merciful? No, you can't. But the Hebrew word, which is chesed, literally means to bow the head in kindness or in respect. It's a concrete meaning. All Hebrew words have a concrete meaning, something that you can experience with your five senses. You can see, hear, smell, taste, or touch it. Bless, is that an abstract or a concrete? It's an abstract. The concrete. What's the concrete meaning of the verb barach?
Kneel.
To kneel. To kneel down. So when it says that Yahweh blesses us, it's literally saying that He gets down on a knee and gives us respect. And as I pointed out yesterday, a lot of people have a hard time with that. They say, oh, I can't see Yahweh kneel before me. I'm supposed to kneel before Him. But let's not forget that our relationship with Yahweh is a father with a child. We're a child. If your child comes up to you, do you stand over and tower over him and talk to him like that? No, you might get down on your knee and talk to him eye to eye. Okay, and that's what Yahweh does with us. He gets down on His knee and speaks with us eye to eye on that level. What else? What else is different between Hebrew and Greek thinking? How about descriptions? Do we describe things differently than the Hebrews? Okay, the Hebrews will describe things by its appearance, but the Hebrews will describe things by its function. Keeping all of these things in mind when you're reading the Bible, you start to change the way you think, and you're reading the Bible from their perspective and not your own. So what I'm going to do next is we're going to learn how to do a Hebrew. How many here do Hebrew word studies? Okay, good. Quite a few of you. It's very helpful when you're reading the text, you come across the word, you want to know a little bit more about it, you want to be able to study that word. What does it mean? And I'm going to show you some tricks on how to uncover the concrete Hebraic meaning of a word. Before I get into this, I have online courses available through my website, how to do a Hebrew word study without knowing Hebrew and learn to read biblical Hebrew. If anybody here is interested in taking those courses, email me and I'll send you a coupon to take it for free. And that's my thank you to you for coming out here. Okay, so if you're interested in taking those courses, please send me an email through my website and I'll give you a coupon to take the course. Okay, here we have Psalms 2:11. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Now the word fear, is that an abstract or concrete? It's abstract. Now, we can maybe see a picture of somebody afraid, okay, maybe see that fright in their face, but we want to know what the concrete meaning of this Hebrew word is. How about rejoice? Is that a abstract or concrete? It's abstract. Okay? What is the concrete meaning? So, whenever we're reading a passage, ask yourself, is that abstract or concrete? If your answer is abstract, then you need to study that word and find out what its concrete meaning is, which is what we're going to do here. Okay. A Strong's Concordance and Dictionary is a valuable tool to use. How many have access to a Strong's? Okay, most of you. They're either available in book form or electronically, like in a Bible program, or even eSword has it, which is a free Bible program. Great resource. Well, in the concordance, it's going to give you the word rejoice. You can look up any word in that concordance. Now, this one happens to be keyed to a King James Version. They have concordance that are keyed to the NASB text or the NIV text. There's many different kinds. So if you come across the word rejoice in a verse, you look it up. And this tells you that it's used, that English word rejoice is used 192 times. And then it'll list all the verses where that English word rejoice appears. And then the letter R here just simply represents the word rejoice. And then it gives you the verse that word appears in, and then it gives you a Strong's number. Now probably most of you are familiar with how this process works. So here is the word rejoice in Leviticus 23 verse 40. It says it's Strong's number 8055. So we go to the dictionary and look up 8055, and it is the word samach. It's used 152 times in the Bible. It's a primitive root. Probably to brighten up, figuratively to be blithe or gleesome. There is the concrete right there, to be bright, to brighten up. Yes?
Why is that 192 different than the 152?
Okay, this is how many times the English word rejoice appears in the English Bible. This is how many times the word samach appears in the Hebrew Bible. Okay, good question, good question. So here we kind of have an idea that the concreteness means to brighten up, to be bright. It's translated in the King James as rejoice, glad, joy, joyful, merry, and miscellaneous. 3 other different ways. Now let's take a look at, down here at the bottom, we have the word rejoice in this verse, Ezekiel 35:15, and it's Strong's number 8057, which is the word simcha. This Hebrew word appears 94 times. It's from 8056. And it means blithesome or glee. It means basically the same thing as this, doesn't it? So what we want to do next is we want to go to 8056. This noun comes from this word. So we will want to look that up. What most people will do when they're doing a word study is they'll say, okay, what's this Hebrew word? They'll open up their Strong's dictionary, and Strong's will say it's word such, and it means this. Okay, close the book, move on. But there's so much more to digging into these words, even with just Strong's. So 8056 is sameach. It's used 23 times, and it's from 8055. This one right here. It means blithe or gleeful. Again, same ideas. So these 3 words are all related. Samach, simcha, and sameach. They all come from this primitive root, samach, which we find to mean to brighten up. The concrete meaning is to be bright. So when you're doing a word study, don't just look at the one word you're looking at. Look at all of the words that are related. And we'll see some more examples of why this is important in a minute here. But you want to look at all of the words that are related to get a better idea of what this root word means and all the words that are derived from it. Because Hebrew is a root-oriented system. You start with 2-letter root, which then you add a certain letters, and you get 3-letter roots, then add certain letters, you get words that are 4, 5, or 6 letters long. But they're all related, and all words that are related are going to have similar meaning. And by looking at other related words, you can get a bigger picture of what that word means. All right, so here's the verse that we were looking at. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Here is Psalms 2:11. And the word rejoice is Strong's number 1523, which is the word ghoul. A primitive root properly to spin around. Oh, that's interesting. Is that a little more concrete? So the Hebrew word ghoul, which is translated as rejoice in abstract, is literally, it means to spin around. Like when you're happy and joyful, glee, you spin around so excited. So we can then say, well, a more literal translation of this would be serve the Lord with fear and spin around with trembling. Let the heavens be glad and let the earth rejoice. The word for glad is samach, which we looked at earlier, and it means to be bright, to brighten up, to be bright. The word for rejoice is the word ghoul, meaning to spin around. So if we remove the abstract words and replace them with the concrete meaning, what we have in this verse is let the heavens be bright and let the earth spin around. Interesting. That's really interesting. Now, Strong's Dictionary, I like to say, is one of the best tools that was ever invented to help people look at the Hebrew language behind the English. The Hebrew language behind the English. But Strong's is also one of the worst tools. It's one of the best, but one of the worst. And the reason is because it has limitations. But unfortunately, if you don't know what those limitations are, you're going to use it incorrectly. So I'm briefly going to go over some of the limitations of Strong's so that you'll understand how important it is to understand the limitations. I'll give you an example. I was speaking with some people, and they told me that the Hebrew word for Savior, for the word Savior, is Yasha. And I said, no, it's not Yasha, it's Moshiach. They go, no, I looked it up in Strong's. It says it's Yasha. I said, well, yeah, but that's just the root, the base word. Strong only gives you the base word. It doesn't tell you what all the prefixes and suffixes are that are attached to it. And actually, in the Hebrew text, that's written in the PL participle form of the verb Yasha, which is Moshiach. And they said, no, you're wrong. Okay. I mean, what do you do? You know, you can't change their mind. So people come up with these wrong conclusions because they don't understand the limitations of Strong's. Oops, wrong way. Here we have a word from Strong's number 4436. It's the word malka, and it's the feminine form of 4428, and it means a queen. Malka. What's the masculine form of that word? Melech. What does it mean? King. Excellent. Very good. So it's the word queen that comes from 4428. So we're going to look up 4428, and there it is, the word melech, a king. And it's from 4427. So let's look that up. And here we have the primitive root malach, meaning to reign. Now, at this point, let's say you were studying this word right here. And it said it was from 4428. So you go, okay, you go to 4428, you look that up, you see, okay, the masculine form is king, the feminine form is queen, feminine form is queen. And both of these are derived from this verb, which means to reign. Now, at that point, you're done in Strong's. That's as far as you can go. But there are many other words that are derived from that, which Strong's can't tell you that. All of these words are derived from that word up here, but Strong's doesn't link all of these together, and that's one of the drawbacks of Strong's. Because, as I said earlier, it's important that when you're studying a word, don't just look at the one word, look at all of the words. So this one here means a kingdom, a kingdom, a kingdom. This one is also kingdom. They all have this idea of reigning, to reign, a king and a queen. So how do we find all these other words? Well, there's some resources for you that we'll come to here in a bit. Okay, and he believed in the Lord. This is Avram before Yahweh, and it says that he believed in the Lord. What does it mean to believe? Let me hear some definitions. What does it mean to believe?
Put faith in.
To put faith in. Okay, any other?
Trust.
Trust? Anybody else?
No.
Okay, what are those three words? Believe, faith, and trust.
Abstract.
Bingo. Abstract words. What's the concrete meaning of believing?
You're keeping Torah. I mean, really, I mean,
Okay, that's a good guess.
it's an action.
That's a good guess.
Standing firm.
So what we're going to want to do is we're going to go, well, let's look that word up and see what it is. It is the verb number 539, amon, a primitive root. Oop.
That's the only one we got, Jeff.
Huh? Oh, okay. Be careful, right? So it's a primitive root that means to build up or support. To support. And all of these words are derived from that verb. But when you're doing a word study on the word believe, Strong's is only going to take you to this. It's not going to point you to these other words. And that's what you need to have the resources available to be able to do that. Now, if you'll notice that the definitions of some of these words are very similar. These all mean faith, faithful, or they're translated or understood as faith, faithfulness, and I guess that's pretty much it. Also, to trust, trust, trusty, truth, truth. To be firm, fixed, firmness. Ooh, is that a little bit more concrete? Support is a little bit more concrete. We're starting to get a little bit of a better idea of what this word means. It also means to be stable, steady, stability. That's very concrete. Okay, we're starting to get an understanding of what this verb means. To be sure, security, surely, surety. Training, that's interesting. And a pillar. This word, this noun, omna. I don't know why I can't read that. Omna means a pillar. Okay, let's start looking at putting all this together. This is what you need to do. You need to sit down and write in your notebook or your computer, if you use a computer or notebook. Write down all these words and go, what do all these have in common? Well, there's a common theme here. It's something that's firm and secure. It ain't going to move like a pillar. It's positioned and it's holding something up. It's not going to move. So we have now a bit more concrete understanding of this verb, amon. So instead of, and he believed in Yahweh, and he stood firm in his position in Yahweh. What's the difference here? If I say I believe in God, I'm saying I trust Him. I'm putting my faith in His work. I'm putting all my faith in what He can do. I'm putting it all on Yahweh. But that's not what this is saying. It's saying that I need to stand firm in what He says. I need to do what He says. An analogy that I use is a friend of mine is running for mayor. And I tell my friends, I believe in him. What am I saying? I say, I believe he's going to be a good mayor. I think he's going to do what needs to be done. But on the other hand, if I said, I support him as mayor, what am I saying? What am I saying if I say I support him? I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I might give him money. I might go door to door for him. I'm going to do something for him. So when we say I believe in God, ooh, that's nice. You're really all you're saying is I know He exists. But that's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be saying, I'm going to do what you said to do. Yes?
It seems like it's like changing it to the first person. Sort of changing the tense of it almost.
Oh, well, yeah. It's not exactly changing the tense. I know where you're going, though, but you're right. It's changing who the action is being put on.
Right.
Instead of putting the action on Yahweh, it's putting it on me. Yes, Tom?
Wondering, the book of James says, even the demons believe, yet tremble. So what are they standing firm in? And
okay.
Why do you have to add a little caveat there and say that it needs to be worked along with the faith?
When we deal with the Old Testament versus the New Testament, the language changes. There's thousands of years difference between Abraham, or not thousands, but about 1,500 years between Abraham and Yeshua. So the language changes over time. So what one word, I'll give you an example, goy, what does the word goy mean?
Nations.
Gentile.
Okay, one person says nation, one person says
Did I
Gentile.
mess it up? I'm sorry.
No, you didn't mess it up, you actually made my point.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the word goy is used in modern Hebrew and in the first century to mean a non-Israelite. A Gentile, somebody who's non-Israelite. But originally, in the days of Abraham, the word goy just simply meant a nation. In fact, when God says, I'm going to make a great nation out of you, guess what word there is for nation?
Goy.
Goy. Singular is goy, goyim is plural, nations. So goy is nation, goyim is nations. So even Yahweh says he's going to make Israel a goy. A Gentile? No, a nation. But in the New Testament, the word goy means a non-Israelite, non-Hebrew. Okay? So when we work with a word like Aman in the Old Testament, it has more of the concrete meaning of being standing firm, but when it's used in the New Testament, it actually has more of an abstract meaning. Because by the time we get to the New Testament, a lot of Greek thinking had impermeated into the Hebrew language. So you have to keep that in mind, okay, when you're working with the language. Any questions?
Yeah.
Yes?
If the Brit was written in Hebrew, then it would have been just a mistranslation.
That is another possibility too. Excuse me, I gotta get my water here. If the New Testament was originally written in Hebrew and then translated into Aramaic and then that translated into Greek, by the time we get to our English translations, we have a book that's lost in the translations. Okay? So maybe we have the word faith there, but maybe in the original Hebrew there was a different word there. In that case, I go to the Peshitta, the Aramaic New Testament, see what word is being used there to find out maybe there's a different way of interpreting that verse. Okay? Another limitation of Strong's is that I mentioned that it only gives you the base word. For example, this is Genesis 1 verse 1, and by the way I have the first word on the left, not the right like in Hebrew, so I'm following English style here. The first word is Reshit, which means beginning, and that's Strong's number 7225. If you look up 7225, all that it's going to give you is this word here, Reshit. That's the base word. Strong's can't tell you that there's a prefix, the letter bet, which means in beginning. And the is inserted. There's a debate on whether or not the should be there. So that's a prefix. So there's no way, by just using Strong's, you're not going to see all the prefixes and suffixes. Those are important because they supply things into the meaning of the word. And there are resources to help you with these prefixes and suffixes, which I will point out here in a minute. Okay, God, if you look that up and do it, it's Strong's number 430, and it is the word Elohim. Created is bara, number 1254. Now when it comes to verbs, it gets a little more complicated. Strong's is simply going to tell you the base verb, bara, which means to create. But every verb has to be conjugated. So it's going to be like barati is I created. Tivra, you created. Okay, so by adding prefixes and suffixes, which Strong's doesn't tell you they're there. If you have the verb bara, that's literally the third person masculine singular. He created. Okay, but Strong's can't help you with that. But there are resources that can help you. Then we have the word et, which is Strong's number 853. There's no translation in English, so it's not translated. Heaven, that's Strong's number 8064, and it is the Hebrew word shamayim. The or the ha prefix is a prefix meaning the, ha. Ha shamayim means the heaven. But Strong's can't tell you that prefix is there, so you would never know that that's there. I have seen people say, well, Genesis 1:1 really means from the Hebrew, beginning God created heaven and earth. They say that's what all it means. But what they're doing is they're just simply going to Strong's, pulling out the words, And they're oblivious to all these prefixes and suffixes that exist attached to the word. Again, we have and et, the prefix and then the word et. Earth is 776. There's the word aretz, but it has a prefix, the letter ha, which means the. So be careful when you're using Strong's. Recognize that if the translation says, he went to the field, but all you can see as Strong is went to the field. Don't assume the word he is added. It's not. It's in a prefix, but Strong's just doesn't tell you that. In this passage it says, and thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. Now the word borrow is Strong's number 3867, which means, it's a primitive root, it means properly to twine, that is, by implication, to unite, to remain, also to borrow, and this is in the sense of joining together. If I borrow money from Teddy, I've joined myself to him now, okay? And Yahweh's saying, don't do that. Don't do that. Now, let's take a look at the word lend. If we look that up into Strong's dictionary, it's going to tell us this number 3867. It's the same word. How can the same word mean lend and borrow? They're opposites, right? Well, the problem is that one of them, this one is written, whoops, I did this wrong. This is supposed to be the heat pile, not the hiffle. This is in the heat pile form. That means to join yourself to another person. The hiffle form means to cause another to be joined. See, the verbs have nuances. There's the PL form, the hiffle form, the niffle form, the heat pile form. Strong's doesn't tell you any of that. So you can't, if you see it where it says, and he caused the rivers to be flooded. Okay, just as an example. The word cause you would not be able to find in the Strong's dictionary because it's a hiffle form and it means to cause something to happen. So recognize when you're doing this, don't just assume because you can't find that English word in the dictionary doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's there. It's just that you can't see it. But there are some resources that can help you with that. And all flesh shall know that I, the Lord, am thy Savior and thy Redeemer. Okay, here's what I was talking about earlier. If you look up the word Savior, it's number 3467. It says it's the word Yasha. Okay? Well, Yasha is just the base verb, Yod, Shin, Ayin. And it means to save, or literally to rescue. But the text actually is the word Moshiach, which is the PL participle form of that verb. Now, you don't have to know the different forms of the verbs. That's not important. Just recognize that they're there. Okay? Know that they exist. The word for redeemer is goel, or gaal, the verb gaal, which means to redeem, to be the next of kin, and as such to buy back a relative. So in other words, your relative is in, we'll call it slavery, bondage. You can buy him back. That is a redeemer, a kinsman redeemer. Okay. Let's see. Okay, in the top verse up here, we have the phrase, he cometh. In the one below that, we have I went. And then we have thou wentest. If you look those up in Strong's dictionary, they are all going to be the verb halach. But in this verse, it's written as halach, but it means he walked. In this verse, it's halachti, which means I walked. And in this verse, it's you went, which is halachta, which means you walked. So when you conjugate a verb, Strong's doesn't tell you what the conjugations are. You just have to assume that the translator is working it correctly, or use some of these other tools that are available.
Would you pronounce those additions such as Moshiach and Savior? Would you put any of the pronunciation of Moshiach into Yasha?
I'm not sure I follow you.
Well, if you go back to the slide of where you said that it has Moshiach in it,
Okay.
sorry to make you go back.
Oh, that's okay. No problem. Okay, Moshiach. Here's the word Yasha. Let me explain how this happens, and then maybe that'll answer your question. Yasha is spelled Yod, Shin, Ayin. Whenever you add a prefix to a verb, the Yod changes to a Vav.
Okay.
Okay, so that Yod becomes a Vav. Then you have the Shin and the Ayin. Now, it's a participle by adding the Mem. By adding the Mem, you make it a PL participle. So just adding the Mem here, that tells you it's a PL participle. So instead of to save a verb, it becomes a noun, one who rescues.
But you don't pronounce it any differently even with the mem?
Well, you pronounce that Moshiach.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you open up, when you open up the Hebrew text, you'll see the word Moshiach, but when you look it up in Strong's, it'll just tell you it's the word Yasha. It doesn't tell you all the other stuff.
That's amazing. I mean,
Is it?
to me, that's pivotal for that.
Oh, it is. It is. It's very, very important to know this. Okay, yeah.
In most instances, if you go back to his lexicon, it'll show you. It'll show you how the change was made in the root line.
Right.
and-
Yes.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Doesn't the inserted yod make it a, doesn't it denote that it's ifl?
This one,
Yeah.
that's actually good. No, I think usually that's going to come in before the second to the last letter. Yes, the yod would have come before the shin. But it's the PL that's putting the yod there, the PL form. Okay? Yeah. Does that make sense? Am I right? Are you looking it up? Okay, if you find something, let me know. So just recognize that these words are not exactly what's in Strong's. So you need to know those limitations. Amon. Strong's number 525, probably in the sense of training. This is related to Amon, the verb we were looking at earlier, without all those circles. Okay, here's Brown Driver Briggs. This is another lexicon, very helpful. It gives you a lot more information. And in this one it says that Amon is an artificer, an architect, a master workman, as firm and sure in his workmanship. Remember we talked about the Amon literally means, which is translated as believe, okay, it literally means to stand firm in your position. Well, a master craftsman is one who is firm in his craft. He stands firm in his craft. Now, Brown Driver Briggs came after the King James Version of the Bible. Strong's, and this is important to understand, is Strong's is doing nothing other than tell you what the King James meanings of Hebrew words are. Okay? They're not trying to really tell you what the Hebrew meaning is. They're just trying to support King James Version. So Strong's definitions of words will agree with the King James Version. Whereas Brown Driver Briggs and Jusinius's will not do that. They're more looking at other languages. How is it used in other Semitic languages? How is it related to other Hebrew words and Hebrew roots? Trying to compile all this information, which is part of what my lexicon does as well, is pull all these different information together to help you in your word studies. So Brown Driver Briggs lets us know that this is connected to the idea of being firm and sure. And they give you an example of Proverbs 8, verse 30. King James translates that as, "Then I was by him as one brought up with him, and I was daily his delight." Wait a minute, where am I? Oh, brought up. This is the King James is translating the verb amon as brought up. The ASV translates it as master workman. Okay, so we can see that the ASV translation was actually using Brown Driver Briggs to translate that word. The RSV, it also has a master workman. So in my opinion, for especially this verse, these two translations are better than this one because it's more concrete. If you want to get into doing word studies, I highly recommend this lexicon. The new Brown Driver Briggs. What's unique about this, or the problem with the original Brown Driver Briggs, is you have to know Hebrew, because all the words are listed in alphabetical order, the words and the roots. So you have to know the Hebrew language in order to look up any word. But the new Brown Driver Briggs Gesenius Lexicon has in the back all the Strong's numbers, and it tells you where it is in the text, what column, and then you go and you look it up. Do I have an example of that here? No, I don't. It tells you column, or page 92, column A. You go to page 92, column A, and there, and you go down and look for Strong's number. There it is, and then there's your Hebrew word. So if you want to use Brown Driver Briggs and don't know Hebrew, you want to get the new Brown Driver Briggs. Or have a Bible program that has it in there and it'll do it for you like that. Very handy.
No.
Very handy. All right. So that's just a quick overview of how to use Strong's dictionary, but also understand its limitations. Now, if you take my course online, How to Do a Hebrew Word Study Without Knowing Hebrew, I'll show you how to use Brown Driver Briggs, how to use Gesenius's, how to use interlinear Bibles, and other resources that are available to you to study Hebrew words. Yes?
I found a very helpful tool also is what they call the quote.
It's called a what?
Quote, they call it the quote, but it's the theological workbook.
Oh,
for
yes.
Testaments. They
Yeah.
actually do exactly what you did. I mean, they'll take everything down to its root and show you all the branches that branch off, and it's theological, and so they're going to tell you some of the different verses, what they actually say and why that adds color to the meaning. But you can always look up those verses yourself and have your own interpretation of those verses, determine the meanings of the words. But actually, pretty much what you did, I mean, it takes you from the very beginning. It gives you like the root meaning, and shows you all the different places where that word's translated throughout the scriptures. Not exhaustively, but all the major ones, to help you get a real good sense of what the word means.
Right. 12, the theological workbook of the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And that's, what, 2 volumes? Or more?
I'm not sure. I got it on my computer program called
Okay.
Bible Works.
Yeah, that is a good resource as well. What I'll go into next is how to use the ancient Hebrew lexicon. How many here have my lexicon? What?
Let them know what's on.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to. If you don't have the book, you can go to my website. Up at the top it says AH Lexicon. It's online, and by the way, that's an updated version. Okay, I wrote the lexicon 10 years ago. A lot has changed in 10 years. So I have the lexicon on a database on my computer. And so every time I do word studies or I'm working on my mechanical translation, I make changes to it constantly. And right now, everything on the website online is the updated version. So there's going to be a lot there that's not in the book form. It's also available as an ebook through my website, where you can just, for any donation, you can download it. And it's also available for eSword. How many here use eSword? Okay, my lexicon is available for eSword. It's free. I have it on my website. You can make a donation if you like. So I've made it as accessible as possible to people to use it.
Jeff, can I ask you a quick question
Yeah.
about the Gaian?
Yes.
And, it was neglected to be used at what period of time? Was that just before the Babylonian captivity?
The Gaian?
Yeah, the 23rd.
No, it would have been before the Bible was even written.
And so it was just in a couple of carvings.
Yes. We have evidence of it being used in Semitic carvings from prior to the Bible being
So that would have
written.
been long before Gematria was added to the...
Yes. Now, well, I guess that's debatable. Some people probably believe Gematria goes all the way back to the beginning. Some say it was developed later, which...
But
that's
it would
what
have
I
been
believe.
right next to the iron? So
Huh?
to speak? Would have been right next to the iron or used as the same...
Oh, in what location?
Yeah.
We have not found any abecedaries. An abecedary is like if I wrote on a piece of paper, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that's an abecedary. They found ancient inscriptions in Hebrew where they have aleph, they're writing aleph, bet, gimel, dalet, hey. But we haven't found any that actually have the Gaian in it. So those were done after the Gaian disappeared. But the orders of letters are different, by the way. Originally, it was aleph, bet, gimel, dalet, hey, tet, something, something, and then vav. They're actually in different orders in ancient times. It's not the same as they are today. All right, so I'm going to kind of briefly go over how to use the lexicon. Because it's a little overwhelming when you first look at it. Now therefore, come now, let us make a covenant, I and you, and let it be for a witness between me and you. So if we want to see the word covenant, we look up, well, the easiest way to do it in the back of the lexicon is the Strong's Index, where it'll tell you the Strong's number is located here. And then you go to the lexicon and look it up. And it's the word berit. And it's written in ancient Hebrew, modern Hebrew, and then a transliteration, berit. It means a covenant. A covenant is instituted through a sacrifice of a choice, fatted animal, which is cut into two, and the parties of the covenant pass through the pieces. If one party fails to meet the agreement of the covenant, then the other may do the same to them. And there's some scripture references of how we understand that way that they did covenant making. This word berit is used 284 times. In the King James is translated as covenant, league, confederacy, and confederate. And then it's Strong's number 1285. Now what we want to do, let me go back, is this is the noun that we're working with, the word berit. This is the noun. But we want to look at its other roots and words that are related to this to give the big picture of what all of these words mean. So we're going to back up to what's called the child root. And it is letter H. It's bara, bet, resh, he. And the action meaning of this word is to eat. The concrete is meat, as in food. And then the abstract is covenant. The grain is used as food for man or livestock. Livestock-fed grains become fat and are the choicest for the slaughter. So from here, we can then look at all of the words that are derived out of this child root. We have bara, which means to eat. Then we have our word berit, which we've already looked at. Oh wait, nope, sorry, wrong one. That wasn't berit. That's barut. Barut means meat. Okay, berit means covenant. We also have beri, which means fat. Now, all of these words are related. Now, they may not appear to be related to us. What's fat got to do with covenant? What's eating got to do with covenant? Well, we got the idea here. It's a covenant was made by cutting an animal in two, cutting the meat into two. The people passed through the pieces. Also derived from that same child root is the word birya, which means meat. All of these words come from the same root. So they're all related in meaning. Now here's that child root, bara, which berit comes from, along with all those other words. But now we want to go back even farther. We want to go to the parent root. That's going to be the two. Oh, also there's the adopted roots. Besides the child roots, there's adopted roots. The beginning of the book explains what parent roots, child roots, and adopted roots are. Okay, here's the, oh, that's just another one of the adopted roots. I don't want to go into that right now. I'm missing the slide. Bear with me a second. No, it's not there. Okay, I guess we'll skip that part.
I've been there.
Yeah, we all have. Okay, all of these are definitions of words that are related to berit, which is translated as covenant. But all of these words are related words. So what is the common theme? And this is what we want to do when we're doing a big word studies. We want to know what's the common theme of all these words. Well, grain, grain is used to fill, okay, fill, and fatten, fat, livestock. The livestock provides meat, and fat. The fat is made into soap, which is used to clean. Is it clean? Oh, yeah, there it is. The meat is for eating. But the choicest meat is divided into 2 parts and used in the covenant ceremony. So covenant isn't just an agreement. That's not all it is, because in the Hebrew mind, all of this is understood in the covenant. Okay? Now, the verse that we first looked at, it said, make a covenant. If you looked at make, the word make up, anybody know what that word is in Hebrew? I'm sure somebody here does.
Cut.
Karat. Very good. What does it mean?
Cut.
To cut. Karat means to cut. So literally in the Hebrew, this is saying cut a covenant, which is talking about taking that animal, slicing it in 2. Where do we see that else? Where else do we see that? I have the scripture reference up here. Where do we see that in Genesis, where the animal is cut into 2 and something passing through the pieces?
Chapter 15,
Right. What happens?
covenant was made between Abram
And Yahweh. Right. And the smoking fire pot and the torch passed through the pieces. God was, but what's interesting is Abraham was not the one passing through the pieces. It was only Yahweh. So really, technically, Yahweh was making a covenant with Yahweh.
What? Oh yeah.
Because Abraham didn't pass through the pieces.
You couldn't let him, because if he did, then because his seed would break the covenant.
Exactly.
Then Abram would have to die.
Exactly. So that covenant was not made with Abraham and Yahweh. It was made between Yahweh and Yahweh. Okay, any questions about the lexicon and how it works? The main thing to remember when you're working with the lexicon is don't just look at the one word. Look at all the words that come from that root. Look at all the other roots that come from the same root, and get the big picture. I'll give you another example of these words. Cheese, heat, shaking, and heat, shaking, cheese, and heat. What do those all have in common? Anybody? Because they all come from the same word cham. The what? No? Okay. Cheese making. In the ancient, or even today, we take those people. How many here make cheese? Quite a few of you. Okay, my wife has done it too. You take the milk. You add pectin. Is that right? No. No? I'm not the cheesemaker, so I don't know. Rennet. Thank you. Pectin is for Jello, right?
Don't ever offer me cheese, brother.
You put what does the rennet do? What does the rennet do?
It's a culture, and there's a science behind it.
Right. It separates out the water from the fat. So you have curds and whey. The whey being the liquid and the curds being the cheese. Well, there's a story. This is an old story that there was a Bedouin from the desert who was traveling to a faraway land on his donkey. And whenever he travels, he carried his goat skin for water. Okay, you take a goat skin, sew it up, goat skin, bladder for carrying water. Well, he got to this place and they offered him some milk. And he loved that milk. It was the best milk he ever had. He says, I want to take some of this to my family. So he says, here, fill up my wineskin, or my goat skin. So they fill up his goat skin with the milk. He straps it to his donkey and he heads home. Well, when he gets home and tries to pour it, nothing but water comes out, not more milk. He's like, what? He opens it up and finds out this cheese. Well, it turns out that goat skin has a natural rennet, right? Rennet? It has a natural rennet that breaks down the cheese. So the way that they made cheese was they would put the milk in the goat skin, they would shake it out in the sun, in the heat, and just vibrate it like it did on the donkey. That's why it's turned to milk, or to cheese. So you'd shake it out in the sun, and it would make cheese. So you have, skin bag. That was the other thing, is also related to the word cham. So you have the skin bag, you have heat, you have shaking, and you have cheese. And they all come from the word cham. So when you're working on these word studies, you want to find what's the common theme with all of these words, and that's painting the picture for you. So now when you see the word cheese in the Bible, you're going to know what cheese is from their perspective. You're going to know what the process was to make that cheese. What's in the mind of the ancient Hebrews when you say the word cheese? Well, they're thinking skin bag out in the sun, shaking it. Okay? That's how you learn the Hebrew culture. Yeah, Tom.
You mentioned the development and the language from the point of, like the term goy, the term believe. Do you see much movement between, say, 1500 BC and 500 BC?
Not so much between 1500 and 500 BC, but from the time that Israel came back from Babylon, which is around that time, right? Okay, around, was it 400 BC they came back?
Like Zechariah and...
Yeah, their language is going to be different because it's been influenced by the Aramaic, and the Babylonian culture actually influenced the language. So pretty much the language from Adam to prior to the Babylonian captivity is pretty consistent. There are some, I've seen some differences. For example, the word for a jackal, or the word, when Moses threw a stick on the ground, it became a tanin. Now, the word, it implies that that was actually a crocodile. I believe tanin is a crocodile. So when he threw his staff down, it became a crocodile. Because the word tanin in most of the Old Testament is a water land animal. It lives in the water and the land. But in the later books, it's translated as jackal, and it's always just a land animal. So I think that tanin meant one thing early on, but later on it meant something different. Okay, a different kind of animal. So we do see some changes through time. But the biggest change is when Israel came back from Babylon, their language was influenced by that culture, and so a lot of the definitions changed. And then again in the New Testament, with the Greek and the Roman culture having its influence on the language, it changed again as well. Okay? Yeah.
A side note, kind of wondering if a lot of us are trying to figure out whether ducks are unclean.
Are ducks unclean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't have to pick the graph, might give us a little clue. Or there's some of these words that talks about these different Hebrew words describing, we're not really sure what some of those are.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
When the Leviticus talks about all these animals that you are supposed to eat and not supposed to eat, a lot of them we really don't know what they are. We can make some educated guesses based on context and what other animals it's grouped in with. But Judaism has a tradition of what they all are. Now, are they right or are they wrong? I don't know, But yeah, that's one of the problems. About 20% of the Hebrew words, we really don't know what they really completely mean. So there is some ambiguity there. When you're reading a translation, a lot of times it's actually saying, we're not really sure what this word means, but we think it means such and such. Okay. Any other questions so far? Yeah. What?
No, you were bringing up, I was looking for a blank piece of paper here. Somebody brought up, you brought up how the King James, or the Strong's is very geared for the King James.
Yes.
Once you see this mark, this will do away with all the King James, or most of the King James theology. Once you see the semicolon in your Strong's, just stop right there.
Yeah.
Once you see that mark, just stop and go back to all of the words that are in italics. And it's, even though it's abstract, it's a little bit more of a concrete, if you can, abstract definition. Everything after that is just basically words translators have chose to use over the years. So it'll help you kind of clean it up a little bit.
I have one question.
Yeah.
You've gone into a lot how to break down the individual word, find a meaning.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about the words surrounding it. Can we run into much problems just breaking down the individual word rather than taking in the surrounding context of words?
If you want to do a really good thorough study, you're going to want to take a look at all the other words around it to see what they mean, because they're going to have an impact on how you understand the other word. Does that make sense? Okay.
It's getting the bigger picture.
Getting the bigger, what you're looking for is the bigger
looking at
picture.
the one individual in the middle.
Right, right. Instead of just that one word, you want to look at all of the words to get an idea of what that big picture is. What's that concept behind that root and all the words that are related to it. Okay?
Jeff, have you created a compilation or a glossary of many of these words, broke down each individual letter, and put together a definition of each word?
Other than what's in the lexicon, not really sure I know what you're asking for, or what you're asking.
Like Kodesh.
Okay.
To break down each letter and describe what is.
What is this meaning based on the letters that are in the word?
And you put together? No. Okay.
For one main reason is that there is some ambiguity when you start working with the letters. There's a lot of interpretation going on there. And usually I'll stick with just the parent root, the two letters. Av, father, is ox head, and the house, bet, the strength of the house. El, an ox and the shepherd's staff, that's the mighty one. It's the strong authority. I'll pretty much stick with those. When you start getting into a word like the word Torah, okay, it's the Tav, Vav, Resh, Hey. And if we look at the pictures we have, and if you read it backwards, it says, behold, the man nailed to a cross. Okay, wow, that's really cool. But it could also say, if you wanted to, you could say it's the mark that adds the beginning of Revelation. You could say that too. Okay, so it's kind of ambiguous. So you got to really be careful. While I find a lot of value in doing that, you have to be careful. And if you never want to violate the actual meaning of a word, if this word means a certain thing, but you look at the letters and say, well, it doesn't mean that, it means this, something completely different. Well, it's possible, but I'd be really leery about that. Okay? Because you don't want to erase what a word really means based just on the letters. Back there, yeah.
Yeah, I got a question. In my time, in my Bible study and everything, I used to study with like 20 different translation Bibles. And I've got Strong's Concordance Dictionary, a Gesenius Hebrew Lexicon, and Greek Lexicon. I've also used Western Dictionary and a Thesaurus. My question is it good to use Western and Thesaurus also?
Okay, so the question is, can I use an English dictionary and thesaurus for the words that are in the English translations of the Bible? Yes, you can, and that's one thing in the course that I put together on how to do a Hebrew word study. That's actually one of the first things you want to do. What's this English word mean? Okay, and start with that as your foundation, but then looking at the Hebrew, you might find, well, that's not what this word means from the Hebrew. It may, but it may not. So if you want to start with the English, what does this English word mean? Okay, then from there go to the Hebrew. What does it mean? What are all its related words? Use some of the other resources. For example, grace. It's translated in the dictionary, or defined in the dictionary as beautiful movement, gracefulness. You know what I'm thinking of here. But the Hebrew doesn't mean anything like that. It's not even related to that concept. The Hebrew is actually related to protection. When it talks about God's grace, it's talking about protection. Okay? And I do have a slide that will kind of actually talk about that word if we have time. Okay, I'm going to get into the... oh, I'm sorry, was there something else?
No, that was an ah. No, I'm saying, I'm glad you have that up.
Oh, okay. Which teaching am I working on here? I don't remember. Oh, defining biblical words. Okay. All right, that makes sense. All right, the Acacia Tree.
Trust us, everybody.
Follow me. Thou shalt make an ark of acacia wood. The acacia tree is a very interesting tree. It has thorns on it. Thorns. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the acacia tree here.
I hate that tree.
Huh?
I hate that tree.
Yeah, but it is an important biblical tree. Very important biblical tree. Wilderness of sin. This is where Mount Sinai is. And this is where the Israelites are camped for, what, a couple of years after they left Egypt. The Hebrew word sin, what does that mean? Anybody know? Thorn. What? To miss the mark. Well, the English word sin, that's actually the Hebrew word chata, which is translated as sin. Chata means to miss the mark. But the Hebrew word sin means what?
Thorn.
Thorn. It means thorns. Interesting. There's our first little connection here. Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai, in Hebrew, the first part of that is sin, which is a thorn. It's actually the thorny mountain. The thorny mountain in the thorny wilderness. And the burning bush. And Teddy mentioned this earlier. It's not just a bush, it's a what?
Thorn bush.
It is a sine, sin, same letter, sin. It's a thorn bush. So we got the thorn bush up on the thorny mountain in the wilderness of thorns. Starting to see a little theme here yet?
So he gathered them all. Wow.
Honey. How many here use honey as medicine?
We use honey for everything.
Everything, yes. Honey is one of the best meds out there. Whenever we start to feel like we got a cold or a flu coming on, we always have a mason jar filled with honey and garlic. Knocks it in the dirt. Knocks it in the dirt.
Thank you.
Huh?
Thank you. I'll remember that.
It works really good, trust me. It's a natural antibiotic and antiseptic.
Especially if you have manuka.
Raw honey and raw honey and preferably from your local area.
Or manuka
Manuka?
from New Zealand. It's very expensive.
From New Zealand.
A little jar for like $30,
Okay.
$60.
Yeah.
Be very careful. If you buy stuff at the store, they are putting other stuff in it. You have to get it from a local beekeeper.
Yes, that's where we get ours. We have a local beekeeper, and we get ours from him. If you're going to Walmart to buy a lot of this stuff,
We actually, our family has hives, mass produces the stuff. You can get it with the bucket with the wings still in it.
Yeah.
If anybody wants a connection, just let me know. We'll get you a bit.
this is kind of off topic, but I think many of us in here are aware that there's a problem with our food system in America, and our medical system, drug system. Yeah. And if you want to see, I've actually made a documentary. Anybody seen my documentary, Today's Modern Food Is Not What You Think?
Yes.
You have? Okay. It's a 2-hour documentary that I put together on YouTube. It's on my personal YouTube page. Just search Today's Modern Food Is Not What You Think, Jeff Benner. And I go into the problems with the food system. If you're going to Walmart to buy your food, you got a problem. If you're getting, do you have high fructose corn syrup in it, GMOs? We buy local from ranchers and dairymen and beekeepers. Support your local people. That's first and foremost. Secondly, you get quality food from them. Okay, that's off topic. That's a freebie for you. He will eat curds, which is the word chema, and honey to know to reject bad and choose the good. Interesting here, it's actually saying by eating curds and honey, he will know how to choose good and bad. That's implying that that is actually medicine. That it is something that's going to affect you in your process of thinking. My son, eat honey, for it is good, and the drippings of the honeycomb are sweet to your taste. Know that wisdom is such to your soul. This is the word chachma. Curds is the word chema. These are the part of the words that I was talking about earlier. The milk turning into cheese. The root of all this is cham. And chachma comes from that. There is a connection in Scripture between curds and honey and wisdom. Keep the statutes and ordinances, do them, for that will be your wisdom and your understanding on the sight of the people. Observing the Torah is wisdom. And wisdom comes from honey and cheese. A little bit more on that here. This is the blossom of an acacia tree. Okay, a blossom, bees are attracted to the blossoms, and they pull the nectar. They take it to their hive and they make what? Honey. Did you know that honey made from acacia tree is the only honey that will never crystallize? Interesting. Their beehive. The ancients used to take beehives and actually put them up in an acacia tree. Why would they want to hide a beehive in an acacia tree?
Protect it from the predators.
Well, how's it going to protect it from the predators?
Thorns.
Thorns, exactly. So, okay, let me move on here. The Hebrew word for bees is devorah, or Deborah, Devorah. Dalet Beit Resh is the root of that. Also from that root comes the word wilderness, Bamidbar. And also from that root is the word dabar, meaning a word. What do all these three have in common? Dabar. Dalet Beit Resh. But what's the common? Okay, Deuteronomy is Devarim, which is this word here in the plural. Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, literally means words. But what do bees, wilderness, and words have in common? No. Order. What?
Oh, I said authority.
Okay, no. Order. Order. The word devar literally means to be in order. Words are put together in an ordered structure to create sentences. A wilderness, which I talked about yesterday, in contrast to a city, which is chaos, the wilderness is a place of order. The bees is an ordered colony. It's perfect harmony in a bee colony. It's all about order. I will guide your word. Guard all the words of this teaching. Remember when I talked about taking the beehive and putting it in the acacia tree to protect it? That's what we're supposed to do with God's word, is hide it in the acacia tree to protect it. It says we're supposed to guard it. Just like the acacia tree protects the beehive, which is honey, which is a symbol of wisdom, the Torah, which is wisdom, we're supposed to guard it in our acacia tree. Guard it and protect it. What?
Isn't that why you put it in the ark? Made out of
Oh, yes. If we have time, we'll actually be getting into that and talking exactly about that. Take the scroll of this teaching and place it beside the Ark of the Covenant. Well, there it is right there. The teaching is the Torah, and place it beside the Ark of the Covenant. Here is an ancient inscription. Anybody know what this letter is here? Very good. Who said that? I figured it was you. Good job. This is the Aleph. There's the horns, the ox head. What's this letter? The Lamed. That's the Lamed. So what's this word?
L.
L. We have talked a lot about these letters. This letter represents strength, from the horns, you know, the power of an ox, the horns, the shepherd's staff. I talked yesterday about how the ancient kings used to wear horns as a sign of their strength, and they carried a staff as a sign of their authority. So we got the horns and the staff. These are ancient symbols of strength and authority. These are carried over into modern times as a crown and a scepter. Okay, royalty still wears the horns and the staff. And the Hebrew word for a horn is karen, which I believe is the origin of our word crown. There's a crown and scepter. Modern symbols that represent ancient symbols, the horn and the staff. And Yahweh said to Moshe, "See, I gave you Elohim for Pharaoh." This word "gave" in the Hebrew is natan. This word is a very, what I call a generic word. It literally means to give, but often it's used in the context of making something. So we can actually translate this as, "See, I made you Elohim for Pharaoh." Yahweh is telling Moshe that he is Elohim to the Pharaoh. Well, Elohim, the first part of that word is El, which is what?
Strength.
Strength
Authority.
and authority. Exactly. So we're being told that Moses is an El. He has strength and authority. Do we see that in the scriptures? Yahweh said to him, "What is that in your hand?" He said, "A rod, a staff." That's authority. So we know that Moshe carried part of the symbol. He carried a staff. Did he have the horns?
Yeah.
Where?
The horns of Moshe.
The horns of Moshe. Okay, here we have Moses carrying his staff. Then we have this verse, literally translated. "And Aharon and all the sons of Israel saw Moshe, and behold, and the skin of his face had horns." Look in your Bibles. Any of your Bibles have the word horn there? Probably not. And they were afraid to come. They were afraid. So right there, boom, he's got the horns. He's the strength and authority of Pharaoh. God's telling Moshe, you are the strength and the authority over Pharaoh, and you have the symbols. One of them is the staff, the other is the horns. Now Michelangelo's statue, what do we see on Moses? Horns. Now, did Moses really literally have horns coming off of his face?
No telling.
Huh?
No telling, sir.
No telling. We don't know. It could have been like this artist who says, rays of light. Now, most of your translations will say that his face shone. S-H-O-N-E. They're taking this interpretation of the horns as light, beams of light coming off of his face. Whatever it was, the people freaked out. Didn't they? They were afraid. They freaked. So whatever it was, whether it was literal horns or rays of light or something else, it scared them. But more importantly, we need to understand that those words in the Hebrew were chosen for a reason. If we just gloss over the verb karan, okay, Q-A-R-A-N, which means to have horns, and we say, well, it couldn't have been thorns, I'm just going to make it to shone. His face shone. Okay? We're glossing over what the author was trying to tell us. He was specifically trying to tell you, yes, he is Elohim, because he has a staff and he has the horns, just like a king does. Okay? So that's one of the things I don't like about translators. They do what I call fix the text. They fix the text for you. If you're reading along and it says, huh? Yeah. You're reading along and the translators, it's like driving a dirt road. Okay, I've been staying out at the Schmoodies. Okay, I've been staying out at the Schmoodies, and they have a dirt road going to the place. I live on a dirt road too. They get a little bumpy sometimes, don't they? It's a little rough, and if you drive it long distances, it can be really painful. So what do we do if we want to fix that? We go in and we grade it. Maybe we'll pour asphalt and we'll smooth it out so now we can fly 100 miles an hour down the road. Well, that's what the translators do. They take the Hebrew bumpy road, and Hebrew is a bumpy road. I mean, I've literally struggled with verses like, what in the world is this guy trying to say? Because of the structure of the sentence, it's just complicated, it's really tough. It's a bumpy road. But what the translators do is they just smooth it out for you and pave it. They cover it over so you have a nice, easy drive as you read your
English asphalt.
English asphalt. Asphalt. That's what a translator does. They fix the text for you. So you don't have to come across a word that says that Jonathan got up from the table with his nose on fire. Anybody ever read that in their Bible? No?
Is that the NIV or?
No. No, that's what the Hebrew says. Jonathan got up from the table with his nose on fire. That's what it says.
Basically, he's angry, right?
Yes, they translate, they fix the text for you and says that he got up from the table with a fierce anger. But literally in the Hebrew it says his nose was on fire. Or how about the one where it says, and Joshua took the scroll and put it in his ear. Or Moses took the scroll and put it in Joshua's ear. Okay? That's what concrete. The Hebrew is very concrete in the way that it speaks. So it says, literally, it says that Moshe took the scroll and stuck it in Yehoshua's ear. Okay, but that's translated as he read it in front of Joshua or something to that effect. They fixed the text for you, so you don't have to worry about these strange idioms and euphemisms and all that kind of stuff. And I think we've done ourselves a disservice by doing that. We don't really see what's in the text. So when the text talks about Moses having horns, he's telling you that for a reason. And if you just erase that and put shown there, then you've lost the meaning. Did I see a hand there?
What about eat the book or eat the scroll?
Eat the scroll, exactly, same thing.
Consume it?
Yeah, consume the scroll. I mean, it's all in there in the Hebrew. It's all concrete. You'd be surprised how some of the things are worded in there.
Is that why they gave Yeshua the crown of thorns and the scepter? I mean, obviously mocking, but, I mean...
Yes, absolutely. It's a sign of his kingship. They call him the king of the Jews.
Right.
Yeah. Back here a second. Okay, I guess I covered that. Any questions? Any questions?
Oh, I just wanted to mention something, that thing about when you were saying about how they were put the honeybee's nest in the acacia wood tree.
Yes.
Did they put it in there also maybe because that's where they would get the honey that could say?
Yes. Then that way they will grab the nectar from the blossoms of the acacia tree and make honey out of it. They'd get acacia honey. So yeah, that's another reason why they put it in the acacia tree. One, to protect it. Two, it's already got the blossoms there. They can just pull it from that, and so they know they'll get acacia honey. Okay, very good. Good point. One of the things I was going to mention, what the rabbis do when they're teaching their children Torah, whenever they come across the word Torah, they would put a candy on top of the word Torah. Okay? And as the child is reading the Hebrew and he comes to that word, there's a piece of candy there. He gets to take that piece of candy and eat it and then read the word Torah. Okay? The sweetness of the Torah. It teaches them the sweetness of it. Okay, I'm going to jump into, I wasn't going to do this until later, but since we've been kind of talking about it, I want to go into the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, here's a kind of an image of what we see when we talk about the Ark of the Covenant. Now, the first thing I want you to think about from yesterday, is the Hebrew text trying to tell us what the Ark of the Covenant looks like when it describes it?
No, it's function.
It's trying to describe its function. Right, that's one of the things I brought out yesterday. English and Greco-Roman thought, we describe things by its appearance. Hebrew describes things by its function, its purpose. So the text is not trying to tell us what it looks like, it's trying to tell us its function. So we're going to talk about that. And before I get into this, I'm going to give you a little caveat here. What I'm going to present to you here now is not 100% correct. You never heard a teacher say that before, have you? Okay? The reason I say that, my philosophy is, I believe everything I believe is true, but I know that not everything I believe is true. So it allows me to be open to other ideas. When somebody presents to me something that's contrary to what I think, I go, cool. I want to learn more about this. Maybe I'm wrong. I like it when I'm wrong, because then I learn something. So when I worked on this study of the Ark of the Covenant, I found some things in the Hebrew that imply that there's a little more going on here than what we thought. So what I'm going to present to you is what I found from the Hebrew text of the about the Ark of the Covenant, what it's telling us, and it's more than what we'd assumed. I know that it's more than what we assumed, and I'm hitting some of the highlights here about what the Ark of the Covenant is, what its function is, what it looked like. Okay? Am I 100% accurate on this? Probably not. But just recognize that there's more going on in the Hebrew than what you see in the English. Everybody with me? Okay? All right, so no stone throwing. I've given you my caveat. Okay, we talked about appearance versus function. They shall make an ark of acacia wood. We talked about the acacia. Overlay it with pure gold. Within and without shall you overlay it. Make 2 cherubim, or cherubim, of gold on the 2 ends of the mercy seat. There I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubim that are upon the ark of the testimony, make a candlestick of pure gold, 3 branches out of the one side, and 3 branches of the candlestick out of the other side. And make a plate of pure gold and engrave upon it like the engravings of a signet, holiness to the Lord. Exodus 28. We're going to look at these verses here. And we've all seen these verses before, haven't we? We've all read these. Okay? But we're going to dig a little deeper. Okay? We're going to remove the asphalt road, get back down to that dirt road with all its potholes and everything, and see what it says. Okay? There I will meet with you from above the mercy seat and from between the cherubim that are upon the ark of the testimony. The Hebrew word for testimony is edut. Edut. And it literally means a witnessing. A witnessing. Its parent root is the word ed. This is the Hebrew word for a witness. When the Bible talks about a witness, it's the word ed. Someone that provides or serves as evidence is a witness. What is the perfect witness. Now, I used to be a firefighter. Any firefighters in here? I know we have one. Any other firefighters? Police officers? Former police? Okay. Are witnesses reliable?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely, 100%?
Well, it depends. Depends what
How
they
many
say.
times have you listened to two witnesses witnessing the same event and get two completely different answers?
Oh, yeah. All the
Okay,
time.
all the time, yes. Witnesses are not really very reliable. There are information there that you can get that's very helpful, but they're not very reliable because they're witnesses. But what is the most perfect witness you can think of? Any ideas? How about a mirror? Is a mirror a perfect witness? Would you agree with that?
No.
If my wife came to me and says, honey, how do I look in my new dress? What am I going to say? Oh, that stinks. No, I don't even know fashion. I'm going to look and go, hey, that looks great. I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, it looks great. Will she trust me? No. So she goes to the mirror and looks for herself, okay, because she can't really trust what I say. I don't know fashion. So a witness is a perfect witness, or a mirror is a perfect witness. It's going to tell you exactly what something looks like. Agreed?
No.
No?
I want to tell you what the other side of it looks like.
Oh, well, good point. That's a good point. It doesn't tell us what's on the other side. I like that. That's thinking outside the box. Take this book of the law and put it by the side of the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, that it may be therefore a witness against you. Now, Teddy already brought up this verse. That Hebrew there is actually, this word against is actually just a prefix, but. And it means in or with or next to. Okay, but the English translations are trying to imply, see, they're fixing the text for you. Well, the Torah is bad, so it must be against you. So that's why they translate that way. But that's not what's in the Hebrew. It's supposed to be a witness with you or in you or next to you. Here's a picture of a scroll. And we're going to lay it next to the box, like it says in the verse. In just a second here. There I will meet with you, and from the mercy seat, from between the cherubim that are upon the ark of the testimony, I will speak with you. So we know that Yahweh is going to be sitting at the ark, right? And we already learned from Teddy a little bit earlier that the ark is actually a throne. And we're going to see more of that in the text. The ark. The Hebrew word is aron. Anybody know what that word literally means?
Light bringer.
Oh. It's related to the word aharon, which is light bringer. But it literally is a box. It's just a box. That's all there is to it. The ark. Ark is a fancy word for box. The root of that is the word or. What's order mean?
Light.
Very good. Light. What does light do? Bring about order. Do boxes bring about order? Now, think about your home. We in our capitalistic culture have a lot of things and stuff. We got stuff all over the place. We got stuff in the garage, stuff in the house, stuff in the car. If we go on vacation, we take a bunch of stuff with us. We always have stuff. Well, you always want to put that stuff in something to keep it organized, otherwise it's strewn out all over the place, so you use boxes or bins to organize things. So a box, the function is to be organized things. Agreed? Good. And light is order because it's chaos and darkness, but when you flip the light switch, you now have order. So light is our first word. I'm going to be putting some words up to the side as we go through this, and we're going to start seeing some Hebraic concepts develop. They shall make an ark of acacia wood. 2 cubits. I'm not going to get into all that. Acacia wood. Acacia wood is a very dark wood, very dark brown, sometimes almost black in some species. So here's our scroll, our book of the law, and we're going to lay it next to this box made of acacia wood. Okay? All right, I already talked about the thorn part. So we know that the acacia wood has thorns, Mount Sinai's thorns, the wilderness is thorns. So thorn is a big concept in what we're working here. So now we've got light and we've got thorns. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. Now this bush is a thorn bush, and it's going to be a flame of fire. Flame and light. The bush is Sine, which is literally a thorn bush, and I believe it is the acacia tree, by the way. Did I mention that earlier? But I do believe that the burning bush was an acacia tree. Okay, we talked about that already. We talked about the honey and wisdom. So we have that already. To keep. Remember, yesterday I was talking about the verb shamar. The noun that's derived from that is shamir, which also means thorn. Shamar is the word that's translated as keep. May the Lord bless you and keep you. But that literally means to guard and to protect. When the shepherd was out with the flocks for days on end, he had to protect that flock. And at night, he would build a corral. He'd stack rocks up about so high, and then he'd go gather thorn bushes and put thorn bushes all on top of the rock. And that was the corral that would protect the sheep. Well, that corral is a shamar. That's the imagery in the Hebrew that we should be seeing. When we see, and the Lord keep you, that corral of thorn bushes is what I see when I see the word keep. So God's going to be, or Yahweh's going to be your hedge of protection. To guard. Shamir means thorn. So we're seeing the idea of thorn again. And we're now seeing the idea of a guard, to guard something. Honey is like wisdom. Wisdom is the Torah. We are to guard the Torah. You see how all of these ideas work together. And you shall overlay it, we're talking about the ark now, overlay it with pure gold. Within and without, you will overlay it. The Hebrew word for overlay is safa, which has two meanings. One of them is to overlay something, to take metal like gold, hammer it into sheets, and then take those sheets and put it on the wood to overlay it. That's safa. The other meaning of safa is to look or to inspect. Interesting. Remember that, to inspect. So we're going to take and overlay this with gold. All right? This word watch is the word safa that I said means overlay, or it means to watch or to inspect. Prepare the table, watch in the watchtower. To watch intently. And what is this?
Space.
Space helmet. Spaceman's helmet. Astronaut's helmet. What is this made out of? Gold. The visor's made out of gold. You can take gold and mash it down to where it's so thin you can see right through it. Okay? Gold is very malleable. You can take 1 ounce of gold and stretch it and pound it or stretch it to make a thread that's a mile long. 1 ounce of gold. Okay, it's thinner than a piece of hair. Gold was very malleable. They would make these shields out of gold because gold will stop X-rays. So they made them out of very thin gold. But they can see through the gold. It's so thin. So what if, instead of just overlaying it with just plain old, just gold, but what if we pounded it so thin that you could see through it? What happens if you take glass and put it over a dark object? What do you have?
Mirror.
A mirror. Which is the perfect what? Witness. So now we have a mirror. And that scroll, the book of the law, the scroll of the law is leaning against it as a witness within you. It's a witness. It's a mirror. Okay, the mercy seat. The Hebrew word is kaforet, which literally means a covering. That's it. We have, these translations, they say we got a mercy seat on the ark. That's a fancy way of saying a cover on the box. Okay? The mercy seat, koforet, it means a covering or a lid. From the root kafar, meaning to cover. So let's put our lid on top of it now, with also overlaid with gold, so it's also part of the mirror. Now let's take a look at the cherubim, or the cherubim. That's what we think of when we think of a cherub. Is that what's on the ark?
The shark.
The Roman Catholic version.
Or this. Okay? We automatically think of cherubim as angels, winged angels. Maybe something like this is a representation that some people have come up with of what the cherubim look like. The word cherubim in the singular is keruv. Keruv is the singular form. You can translate as cherub. It is related to the idea of a guard and to be near something. Guard, and that's a word we've already looked at before. We're going to start seeing these words pop up all over the place, all these concepts. It's related to charev, which is a sword. So we have karev, cherev. They're related words, cognates they call them. What is a cherev? Anybody know? A sword. Does that sound familiar somewhere? Genesis 3, the cherubim with the flaming sword.
The angels of the Euphrates.
He drove out the man of the garden at the east of the Garden of Eden. He placed the cherubim and a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life. Guard, flame, okay? These are important concepts when we start talking about the Ark of the Covenant. Cherubim are associated with a sword. Here in Jeremiah it says, your own sword devoured your prophets like a ravening lion. Here we're having a sword being equated with a lion. There's a connection between lions and swords. Sword is associated with a lion. And on the side of the seat of the throne were armrests and two lions standing beside the armrests. So the lions are associated with the throne. Over the heads of the cherubim there appeared above them something like a sapphire in the form resembling a throne. So the cherubim are associated with the throne. Okay, so we're adding these words. This is from Babylon. It's a pair of guardian figures that flank the entrance to the throne room of Ashurbanipal II, approximately 800 BC. These are winged lions, and they guarded the throne in Babylon. Okay, what is a winged lion called?
Chimera. Okay, never mind.
A griffin. A griffin. All right, let's take a look at that real quick. Oh, here's another example. This is an Akkadian griffin, a winged lion. A Greek example of a winged lion. In English heraldry or European heraldry, we have a winged lion. And let's take a look at the word keruv. In the Hebrew, the kaf, the resh, the vav, and the bet. Keruv. If we change the k to a g, these are guttural letters. K, g. They're made in the same